Black to Black around the world, a space devoted to having conversations that connect, enlighten, heal, and build community amongst Black people globally. I'm Ray.
I'm Queen.
Yay. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on with your voice today.
You know what? I don't know. I have no idea. I went out yesterday, but it's not like I was screaming the whole day. I don't know. It's every time I go out, like I said, on a Saturday, that Sunday, my voice is gone. I left it wherever I went.
I just want to let's kind of follow the breadcrumbs to find your voice. I'm just trying to figure out how this is a regular occurrence on Sunday morning. Let's think about it. What would you always talking about you want to swag surf on a weekend? Is that happening for you? And are you yelling during the swag surfing? Or what's going on?
I didn't get the swag surf yesterday. So I went to a celebrity golf tournament yesterday. I did a lot of talking, then afterwards met some friends for dinner, went to the club after that, but it was normal volume.
Okay, the club. Okay, that part. Let's stop with that. What
there was no yelling
in
the club. There was no yelling in the club.
Were you talking over music?
Possibly, but I feel like that should be normal, talking over music.
Your voice
is normal.
Your lungs and your vocal cords should be able to withstand that for the next day.
Exactly. Now, there was a moment in time where I did a lot of whistling.
Okay.
But still.
Whistling.
Whistling.
I mean, whistling. I don't know. Is that the same area of why your voice would sound crusty? We'll get down to the bottom of this.
Just pray for me.
Look at this. I'm so official. I have this mic. I'm a podcaster now. I feel like I'm in the studio. Oh, don't you hear me now? Okay, don't get too excited. I already use the area. So I was saying, I feel like it makes me feel like I'm in the studio. I'm recording.
Yes.
I feel like I need to spit bars today. So let's I'm gonna channel my inner rapper. I'm gonna be spitting some bars today.
I love it. What are the odds you have a mic to make you sound better and I get on here sounding worse?
You need a mic. I'm gonna drive 4 hours right now and bring it to you so you won't have to try and project today. But so you had a good weekend, sounds like. I mean, based on your voice.
Yeah. How was your weekend?
My weekend's been good. I really wanted shrimp and grits this weekend. Ooh, how do you feel about shrimp and grits?
I feel everything about it. I love shrimp and grits.
Because I'm just thinking we should make that a thing when we get together. Please. Because I'm on a quest to get some, and the place that we went to doesn't serve it on Saturday. And I almost cried, I'm not gonna lie. Because I had how your mouth be fixed for the meal. And they didn't have it on the menu. I tried to, replace it with shrimp and mac and cheese, and the mac and cheese.
Not the same.
The mac and cheese wasn't hidden. It was just not a good time. I literally almost cried. And I was like, I think this is a combination of a lot of things. I'm in transition right now. There's some other things that are bothering me. And just these shrimp and grits just would have really helped me. My friends had to sit there and make me recite 5 good things about the day because of the
it was that bad.
Listen, that's community right there, because they were like, okay. I was like, I'm sorry guys, I'm just really in a funk right now, negative about everything, and they were trying to help me backtrack on how did I get to this space, because it can't be just the shrimp and grits, but the shrimp and grits would have helped me, kind of at least get out of the funk or be okay within the funk. But they were cool. We did that, and we went to a coffee shop and had great conversation. We actually played the game that you and I have been talking about playing on the show. We're Not Really Strangers.
Oh yeah,
and that show. It was cool because the questions are okay, but it was the conversations that came out of the questions. So I was super grateful for that time with them, and to be able to just, chat with them. And it was a lot of introspection. It was one of them was joy. And we were just talking about, this is feeling like therapy, it was getting a little antsy and uncomfortable, but it was, at the end of the day, a safe space and super comfortable.
I love that. I love that for y'all. Yeah, we definitely still have to play it. Maybe like on our 6-month anniversary or something.
Right. What episode is this? Episode 8?
Oh man, I think so. Oh my gosh.
We're
Look it up.
on a roll. On a roll.
We are on a roll.
I thoroughly enjoyed our last episode with Araba.
Yeah.
It was one of my favorite episodes. It's one of the episodes that got so far the most listens. Not that we get caught up in that, but I get excited when we have powerful conversations and other people are able to glean from that and learn from it. And so I did watch the numbers on this one. And I did share it widely just because it was such a rich conversation.
Yeah, that I did enjoy that one as well. Did you pick up a book or have you been able to
I
order it?
haven't picked it up. I was thinking of getting it. I'm not sure how accessible it would be in Ghana, but no, I haven't been able to, but I do want to pick that up. It could be a potentially good what do you call those when you get together and read with people, book club type read.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to mention was something Xavier, one of our avid listeners, past guests, mentioned when we were talking about having a conversation about anti-Blackness. He sent me a voice note and he was like, something I would like y'all to explore is allowing people to show up as their authentic self. People in your community, Black people, show up as their authentic self. He's like, because for me, like, who I am is evolving and changing all the time. But he's like, for me, it would be anti-Black for someone to tell me who to be and someone else to tell the other person to be. And I thought that was a good layer, because like it does become a little anti-Black when we're like policing our fellow people and like act like this and don't act like that. You're to this and you're to that. And I think that becomes, we start to oppress other people. We start to be our own enemies in that situation. So it's something I definitely want to bring into the space.
Okay, Xavier. Look, I love how he just tunes in and sends in some tips and advice. I'm here for it. Now that was a great episode we did with him.
Yeah. So Erin's in the building.
Hey y'all.
Hi Erin, how are you?
Hi, how are you? I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah. You go first.
We're gonna let Queen go after. She gonna tell you about her situation.
Okay.
But it's Sunday. I'm good. I would like some shrimp and grits. I didn't get them yesterday, but I'm here. I did make me a delicious smoothie. It has all of the goodness of the earth in it, and so I'm super happy about that. How's your Sunday going?
It's going well. Well, you know what? I'm gonna be honest. It's going, Sunday mornings, some Sunday mornings we have hair. And I have, having a 4-year-old, but having a 4-year-old Black girl, I don't know if there was a ritual in your homes growing up, but usually a Sunday morning or afternoon was dedicated to hair. And my mother and I are still healing.
Yeah.
Her healing includes her laughing at me while I'm doing it, but she also then hugs me and makes sure that I have all of the care that I need when I'm doing my daughter's hair. And so in doing her hair, and there's so much wrapped up in that, but in doing her hair, I usually get pretty activated. So from a neuroexpansive perspective, it creates a lot of anxiety when she gets agitated. And then also I have a tremor. I have an essential tremor. So I'll know when my nervous system is like really flared and riled up. So I usually try to put in place a lot of my soothers, and also her soothers. But today, she was excited. She woke up at 6:30 this morning because she has a birthday party this afternoon. So that meant everybody was up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we did hair. And then I said, okay, mommy's gonna go have some time to walk outside and to replenish. And she's totally fine. My mom is here. You might hear her. They're doing art. So they usually are doing some kind of project. But yes, so I've been settling I can take my ice pack out from underneath my shirt now.
That helps calm. Is that
oh yeah, this is a great tool that I have been using. It calms me down tremendously, and it works with my vagus nerve.
Okay.
So if I'm not using this, then I'm humming or I'm singing or I'm rocking. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. But yes, I'm happy to be here with y'all.
Yes. I'm glad you're doing better. That hair day can be a thing. And I like how you said you and your mom are still healing, because it's something how hair can impact relationships, all around. And then I'm sure all of us have stories. For me, when I think about hair and sitting down in the routine and when it was time to do hair, I just remember thinking I wanted to be a boy, because all the boys in my family would be running around free and I would be spending time doing the hair, and it was like either it was the burning or it was the pulling, and then like you said, like things can happen, things can be said. Like I have moments of when I was starting to get perms and my mom being just like disappointed because it didn't straighten enough. And I just think, and just like for me, it's just like that feeling that came from like her being disappointed because it didn't straighten enough. But like you said, like healing has to take place after the relationship between our hairs, our hair.
Oh my goodness. I mean, this is a whole segment.
It is.
I'm sure it's a whole segment. I mean, I just had a flashback, right? We have hair trauma. We have hair, and I've been locked for 12 years. My mom has been locked longer than I have. And so my mom was joking. She was like, yeah, there's a reason why we don't do our hair anymore, Maya. And Maya's like, my mom's laughing because I say the same things to Maya to get to soothe her that my mom would say to me. And I remember them while I'm saying them. I'm like, this didn't work. When she used to say this used to like upset me more. Or, and then the whole thing, like it takes pain to be beautiful. And I'm like, what do we believe is beauty, right? Like even in that, like, I'm going to have to pull this through your hair to straighten it. And then all the praise you get for like, your hair is growing. We have to tame it. We have all the messages that I'm like, okay, I don't want to say that. Wait, nope. And so all of that is going on. And my child is like, I don't care. I want this to stop now. Stop this now.
Right. Queen, I don't know if you want to share about your voice or your experiences.
Yeah, I've sort of lost my voice. So, I am definitely trying my best to recover, especially before tomorrow comes. But it was just a freak accident. I had fun yesterday and woke up this morning and apparently I left my voice wherever I was.
Oh my.
So yeah, I'll be able to definitely engage in the conversation, but I'm not necessarily going to be as talkative as I normally am, unfortunately.
Oh, I'm glad you had fun. I'm like, you feel fine. So it's just your voice. It's
just the voice. And honestly, it's like this has happened now for the past 3 months. I will go somewhere on a Saturday. Sunday morning, I wake up and my voice is gone. My father says I'm just getting older, but I don't buy it. I don't know what's going on. So I think at some point I might need to really take it seriously and see someone about it. Because I told Ray I did go to the club, but talking over music shouldn't result in you not having a voice the next day. Like I I think something else probably is going on, but I have my tea, some
Okay.
honey in it. I have a little bit of lemon juice in it. So I'll be rocking that for the next 24 hours.
Okay. You got that honey.
Got the
Well,
honey, got the nice
Kind of
little
coat the
warm tea.
throat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yes.
And it's ironic because, Ray shows up with a nice, beautiful microphone
it's my
and,
first time showing up
like
with it.
elevating the podcast. And here I am,
Mhm.
like needing a microphone.
You're being totally true and authentic. And I was just gonna say to both of y'all, I enjoy listening. I felt like I was talking to y'all because I was just listening to you because I was listening to the show.
Oh yes.
And
the record, yeah.
Yeah, no, but even just a show, I was listening to the most recent episode, and I love your flow, and so I was like, I was just hearing Queen talk,
Yeah.
but that was in my head.
Yeah, I'm glad you got to listen to it. Do you have any thoughts on that episode? We were just kind of bringing that back into the space and building on it.
Yeah, and I didn't even get to finish it. So I was going to say, I want to go
Mhm.
back and finish it. But I loved where it was beginning, especially as you all were, and I was just getting into the anti-Blackness conversation. Because I was loving even just the intro and how you all were talking about wellness, but also Queen, so much of what you were sharing resonates with me as someone who has also found different ways of meditation and recognizing how many of us struggle with stillness.
Yeah.
And when Ray was talking about, any form, any practice that brings you in your body, that allows you to be present in the moment, is a form of meditation. And it allows us, and I think I can't remember the sister's name. Araba, yes, beautiful. Araba, when she was really talking about interoception, like understanding what's happening, going in and understanding your inner world without the influence of the external messages. And that's something that's been a practice, a struggle, my work. I've recently been told by several of my spiritualists and intuitives that it is actually my life, like it is my life's lesson.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so that access to not only to my spiritual gifts and to my greatest resource is actually my ability to center, to go in, to meditate. And that's also how I connect with my ancestors. That's how I connect with my people. That's how I connect with my spirits, my guides. So, and as someone who is, neuroexpansive, who has ADHD and whose brain is always busy without attention to my, to where my attention is going, it's hard. So,
I do want to slide in. I do, because you
go right ahead. Cut me off anytime.
Sorry, it's okay. It's only because you shared. It got me thinking when you were sharing about like who you are, what makes up you. You gave a great intro in our pre-conversation, and I'm wondering, like, based on like who you are and that neuroexpansiveness and like ADHD and dealing with that. Because I don't know if you really spoke to it, if Black Mama Body like is an answer to that as well. But I do want you to, whatever you're comfortable with, share an intro. I know you talked about where you were speaking from, and one of the things I really wanted you to speak to is the roots that you were speaking of that were denied of you, and just kind of your life's work. If you could speak on that and tell us who you are.
Yes. So who I am is Erin Trent Johnson. And I have lived into Black Mama Body as I think more than an identity. I think really in representation of my body and how my body is the vessel that carries my soul, but also the way in which we experience the world through our bodies. And and Black bodies are often, and anybody, I think anybody that experiences some form of marginalization, exploitation, we're often out of our bodies, right? And so we are, whether that's for survival, right? So there's nothing defective about that. It is a part of what has been the seeds that have been planted in us that we've carried for generations. And then mama, I am a mama, I am a mother of a Black daughter, of a child who right now identifies as a girl. And I am also the daughter of many mothers, many mothers who not only were the caregivers for our family and for their families, but also for many other people's families, and the caregivers beyond their blood kin and their children. They may have been in the caregivers in other people's homes, in wealthy people's homes and white people's homes. I am 6 generations out of enslavement on my mother's side. And I specifically name that as well when I talk about being Black Mama Body, as I am deeply connected to my ancestors, those who I communicate with daily, regularly, and those who not only passed on the medicine, right? The medicine of how we make a way out of no way, how we, as some people, how we get through, how we get by, but also how we make magic. And so when I think about my mother is here, as I was saying, and my mother is a Black woman who, as a child here in Philadelphia, slept in the same bedroom with her grandmother and her grandmother's grandmother when she was small. So when I think about who was coming in their dreams, and my mother, was telling me a story recently of her grandmother, my great grandmother, who I slept in the bedroom with her when I was little. And, her capturing her dreams in the morning in the dream book, and what was passed down was not only the wisdom, but also, the ways in which I think Black folks have always made magic. And so I bring that with me. I bring that lineage with me. I bring that, the stories that we tell or that we share about our lineage are often lost or forgotten. There's a lot of stories that aren't passed down because of shame, or we're trying to put things back together. We're trying to fill in the holes and the pieces. And I love how y'all are in this beautiful podcast that you all have, how focused you are on healing and wellness, and for Black folks to be in community. Our healing is a part of that. Our healing is essential to community. And I think a lot of ways, I'm so excited about this time, this moment right now, this Gen Z, millennials. I'm an old head millennial. I'm like right at the very beginning of millennials. But the idea that our healing is essential in everything that we do. And part of that is remembering those stories, and remembering and putting back together both the possibility, and as my brother Resma Menachem, who wrote My Grandmother's Hands, says, the possibility and the peril, like they can live together. And we can find the magic that lives in between. So That's what I do. I'm an embodied freedom coach. I've been a professional coach for several years. I've led work that is related to not only focusing on leading for racial justice and working with leaders within organizations and institutions, but also, and so facilitation, but also really working with Black leaders and leaders who identify as bodies of culture, who are actively working on stepping into their power and reclaiming their power. And so, my joy in that is witnessing the healing and the liberation and the, I can do what I want to do. That choice is available to me. When that awakening happens, that is everything for me. So that's what I do as a coach, as a facilitator, and as a curator of liberated healing spaces for Black folks and for bodies of culture.
It's beautiful.
And you're in Philadelphia, right? You mentioned being roots that were denied. Could you expand on like that concept of that roots that were denied for you many years?
Yes. So I live in Philadelphia. My family on both sides actually migrated from Virginia. The families that I have connections to. So, there were a couple of lines that I didn't have direct connections to because of family separation. And so I'm just now learning through the last couple of years. I've been doing a lot of ancestral lineage research and pilgrimage, exploring. Spirit has been calling me into the right places. And so traveling down south to Georgia, to the Sea Islands, to where the Gullah Geechee people have been just brilliantly preserving their divine Africanness for centuries.
I'm so interested in them. I would love to have someone from that community on
to
discuss.
There's another queen, Queen Ket. She's a brilliant sister, and I will share her information.
Yes, I would
and
love
she's
that.
But there's also there's so many other people. When I actually made pilgrimage, the last trip one of the trips that I made to the McLeod plantation, which is it is like the plantation in Charleston that actually tells the truth about enslavement. So they're not glorifying, they don't have weddings, they don't do anything on the plantation to glorify planter culture, which is what they call it, or enslavement. They tell the truth. And so the sister who was the cultural interpreter there was actually from Philly, and we connected as she was guiding us through the tour of that plantation and telling the true story. And she's third generation Gullah, so she went back home. So there's a lot of that. I mean, I don't know if you all are in the South, and I think there's so much of and in the last 10 years, there's been a great migration back down south from northern cities where our people came up, and that's where my people came up, back down south to Georgia, to Florida, to North Carolina. And so I've been making those treks with my family and on my own, following the first Underground Railroad, which went from Charleston, South Carolina, to St. Augustine, Florida, where Fort Mose exists, and that was the first freed Black settlement in the United States. And so that was, that was in the, I guess when Fort Mose was founded, that was a deal with the Spanish, At that time, it was still Spanish Florida. And so the Spanish made a deal that basically said to the enslaved Black folks, if you will protect this fort or protect this area from the British, we will give you your freedom. And so this was, again, we are magic. This was a deal we made. And so the folks there were a beacon of hope for all those who would potentially rebel and seek refuge and find their freedom going south to Florida instead of going north. And so I took Maya there, and we spent some time and we gave thanks to our ancestors there. But yeah, so I have been spending a lot of time reclaiming my roots. And so recently I found out about a part of my family that is deeply connected in Georgia, and actually tracked them back to the plantation and to the bills of sale for my ancestors, who were mothers from the Home, now Benin, and who practiced that juju, and who made the medicine, and who take care of the children. And so they are speaking to me now, right? They are speaking to me now. They are guiding me on not only on my own personal healing journey, but on what I believe is my calling to create refuge and healing spaces for Black and Brown and African descended women and femme bodies.
Yes, which is part of that remembering that we want to get into, right? And that allowing us to remember. I don't think a lot of us understand the importance of remembering, which I would really like us to get into. I think the first time I was introduced to it was really through my friend Ida. She talks about it. She's a chilling therapist on Instagram, and I had her do a session at my retreat, and we were digging into the remembering of who we were before somebody told us who we were. Which was it sounds good, but then it really was not easy. There were times where I disassociated because I was like, this is tough, this is hard. She really pushed us, and when we would say this, we would try. She had us verbalize who we were, and then I remember I was like, I don't know if I have English words to describe that, and she was like, basically saying, yes, a lot of who we are can't even, in our essence, can't really be summed up in an English word. But I definitely want to get into that remembering and connecting that to your discovering your roots and going back and discovering what the ancestors laid out for us, that we could remember, that could go and that aid us in our journeys and our healings and being in community and who we are and what our output in the world.
Yes. Let me move my ice pack. So, part of it is just that, right? When you were just talking about what it felt like in your body to even respond to that question. And that question, so I am a coach, certified professional coach, and I really started off as a leadership coach, I think very much in the white supremacist productive model of stepping into power, right? Whatever that is. And with the focus on wanting to support Black folks in leadership, but it was still very much through a white-centered lens, a colonial standard, I think, of leadership. And when I actually sought out my coach training, I was specifically looking for coach training with a liberatory model. Like I've looked at all the, I looked at all the MBA programs, all the, elite programs, and I was like, I'm done with that because.
Tell us about that liberatory model, because I think that word will be used throughout this conversation.
Yes. So I actually sought out a coaching program that at the time was led by two people who now lead a coaching school that I mentor new coaches for, called Coaching for Healing, Liberation, Healing, Justice, and Liberation. And that coaching model was really about not only reclaiming our inherent power, calling that out, and especially for any bodies that have received messages or have internalized messages, right? Like you said, before someone told you who you were, who were you? To call out your power in that way and say, you were divine. You were divinely created, that we are inherently divine. That right. So to know that part of that liberation is a spiritual liberation, right? What it is, the remembering of our for us, our Africanness, right? The Pan-African values of community, of wholeness, of ritual. For me, liberation is also very much connected to the idea of community, right? And so you'll see that throughout the continent, right? You'll see where the values of community, of Ubuntu, I am because we are, living in almost every single culture, in every single lineage that made it through Middle Passage and came over here. So that part is, the reclamation of that is a part of our liberation, is knowing also, right, we heal together, communally, right? The harm that's been done to us was collective, and so our healing is collective. When you were talking about the piece that I think that really, really resonated with me when we talk about liberatory, right, is also about recognizing the possibility of finding that power within our own bodies by coming back home to our bodies. So your yoga, I mean, this, right, as a healer, that, and I think specifically for Black folks and for Black women and wombed bodies, our liberation comes when we also reclaim the sovereignty of our bodies, because our bodies were used to produce labor, like to actually be in labor to produce labor. So our wombs were used as factories. And so to be able to reclaim sovereignty over our bodies in every way, including our power of our voice, the power of our choice in every way, right? And that choice may even be the things that are unconscious to us that we don't know. I think y'all had a great conversation on boundaries, how unconscious we are about what we do and do not consent to, the stuff that makes us uncomfortable, the stuff we don't really want to do. Like, I'm like, I don't really want to do your hair, but I have to do it, like, but I have to do your hair. Or also, right, I don't really want to take on this contract, but scarcity and fear might tell me, as an entrepreneur or as a Black woman, that I can't say no, because what if then my reputation out there said, well, Erin says no. Erin spent the whole year saying no last year, because the recognition that the work that had been coming to me was violating my boundaries, but I was unconscious to it. And so therefore my choice was, I was not present to my choice. I was not present in my body. So that that's liberatory, right? When I'm coaching folks, it's about, if you're being asked to lead the equity initiative in your corporation, and you're told you're going to get the promotion, you're going to be at the C-suite table, or you're going to be able, or you're going to, whatever connection to power or access you're told you're going to get, and yet at the same time, you are going to have even more of your time, your resource, like your energetic resource, your joy, right? Your ability to just be taken, often without there is no proper compensation, by the way, for that work, by the way. There is none. But for all of that, and in every moment, you might not be able to see the choice available to you. Not only to say no, but also to stand in, like, what do I want? So I'll stop there.
Yes. I just really want to keep like expounding on that word liberatory. For me, for us, that's really important for me. It's just like, how can I operate? When I learned that liberatory consciousness, Barbara, I forget her last name, Barbara Love. I was like, yes, this is where it's at. Because there was a point where I thought I wanted to do DEI work, and I'm like, oh, that's not for us. But I knew that there was some work that we as Black people needed to do around undoing some things, unlearning some things. But I didn't think DEI was where it's at. But when I learned about liberatory consciousness and just like being aware of how we've internalized a lot of things, how we are acting unconsciously to continue upholding these systems. Because sometimes we think that once we get a little power, once we get a little aligned with what white supremacy is doing, then we are free, then we are equal, then we are the same, and then they will see our value. But I feel like that liberatory model is still like taking it a step further. How are these things still harming us? How are because we could create these spaces and just do the same things, but put a Black face on it. But it's really important to be operating from that. How can we free ourselves of this internalized racism? How can we free us? How can we unlearn some of the white supremacist ways of doing things? And so I think that when you're saying the work, it has to have this liberatory model lens. Like anything, and for me, anything I do and talk about, it has to have this like liberatory. How can we be a little more free when we're talking about this? How can we be a little more free when we're operating in this space or whatever we're bringing into it? And still to this day, I could sometimes be hard on myself because I'm like, am I operating from a liberatory conscious mindset? What am I still operating from this unconscious place? And I'm just like, is that a practice? Like you said I'm a yoga teacher, so I do see everything as a practice. Every day is a practice to continue moving toward that like liberatory conscious mindset, moving toward that unlearning. It's like, I don't know if y'all have a practice on that, but I think that is like something that you just have to wake up and choose on a regular basis,
Yes, I mean, I just want to pause, and Queen, because I see this for both of y'all. So first of all, I would say, yes, absolutely, it's a practice. Be clear. We talking about practice. I'm from Philly, so I will always bring in Allen Iverson. We talking about practice. I don't know if y'all remember Allen. I don't know how much older I am than y'all, but
I was obsessed.
We talk about practice. Yes, in this case, we are talking about practice, and I think the unconditional love that we offer ourselves is a part of that practice. And I want to like put a whole lot of emphasis on that, because I think we also live in a world where we've been canceling ourselves, right? Like talking about cancel culture, period. But the idea that we live in binaries is inherently white. The idea that there's not enough room for us to be able to try something.
And binary, expound, please.
Right, binary. Like you're either right or you're wrong. You're either free or you're not free.
Which is a big, which is also a big part of like what separates us and what causes this whole system of
Correct.
These
racism.
labels.
Absolutely.
Right. One is better than the other.
One is better than
you
the
know,
other. Oh, well, they're not
what
woke enough. They're not conscious enough, you know.
it's
And
either
that,
this or that. Yeah. No in between.
right? There's
Yeah.
no in between. There's
No
no space
overlap.
for growth. And I understand it because I have been there. And that comes from, it comes from fear. It comes from shame. That's also a part of the internalization, right? The internalization that's still attached to some form of perfection, right? That idea that, like, for me, I know that I would often think if another Black person in institutions that I was working with, if they were not as conscious, and clearly I wasn't the most free, right? Whatever that means, right? But at that point, that person could be a threat to me, right? So it feels like an existential threat. That if there's another Black person or another body of culture who is not as conscious of the way that racism is working on us, or the way that any structure of oppression is working on us, that we could be harmed, that fear a lot of times is older than us. And so this is why I started engaging in embodiment practice. This is why I started working with Resmaa Menakem and on somatic abolitionism, and really studying and understanding trauma at the level of both at the level of structures and systems, which is where I was very much in like a heady space. Again, I was doing that white work, right? Which is like, we're going to, and it's also male work. It's a patriarchal view of, it's a masculine view of solving problems, that I'm gonna analyze our way out of this, instead of recognizing it's working on multiple levels. And so it's working at the historical level. So at the institutional level, my trauma might have me in the place where I see anyone who is potentially, again, not as conscious as I am, as a threat, because I might be reliving or having the embodied experience of my ancestors, right? Where the threat to them was, if someone is not as conscious as you of how this plantation works, you may not live to see tomorrow, right? And so that might not be my current experience. So oftentimes, like when I'm coaching with folks and something comes up, you know, a fear, something that seems like it is way more, it has more heat, it has more texture, it seems like it has more power than the actual story. I'll ask them, how long have you had this feeling? How long have you had this fear? How old is this fear? Where does it live in your body? Right? So that, because it's important to understand and to locate, and that's that inner work that we were talking about. Where is this coming from inside of me? If I can't recall, that stuff is probably older than me.
Yes. And I love Resmaa's work. I have his book here. I need to finish it. It's a heavy book. It's something that
it is heavy. You gotta take. That's why Resmaa, we talk about practice. It is all practice. It is all practice.
I've always wanted to, and I'm wondering if you could speak to this. So I had an experience in Alabama once. I was visiting the Equal Justice Initiative, Brian Stevenson's. Have y'all been there? It's
Maya. I took Maya. That was our last trip before the pandemic.
And so I walked through there, and I was just really present. And like, basically, if you're not familiar, Equal Justice Initiative, I don't know if tribute is the word, but pays tribute, like basically brings recognition to the lynchings in all their forms in America, with the idea that when we, you know, are faced with the atrocities and the brutality of lynchings, that we will repair from there. And so and I'm probably doing not the best job of describing that, but he has these kind of a memorial where things are hanging, and he talks about the pillars. So there's lynching by fire, lynching by tree shootings, and different things, and their names, saying their names and their places. And I saw so I'm reading and I'm like seeing where I was born, Houma, Louisiana, and reasons why people were lynched. And they're like whistling, or like speaking to a white woman lynched, different things. And so I'm going through this memorial. I'm not feeling anything as I going as far as like emotional. I'm just taking it in. I'm just like really present. And I get to the end of the memorial and I read a quote, and I'm just like, with a group of community members that we went down there for Tulsa, Oklahoma. I went through kind of alone and did my own thing, but then I feel these emotions coming up again. But
yes, yeah,
something that was beyond me, and I started wailing, and I was just like, it was an out of body experience. Like it was as if I was at a funeral. And I was just like, okay, so you went through this whole, and I still couldn't explain. My friends like, what happened? What did it for you? I'm like, I don't know, but I just know that I was in mourning, and it felt beyond me. And like people had to come and like uphold me and like pour water on me. And it was as if I was like at a close relative's funeral. And it's not, and I could barely can explain it now, but as I learn about carrying things, I really feel like that was not me. That was my ancestors weeping through me.
Hooray. I'm just ask you if you don't mind for a second, both of you, just to pause for a second. And I'm pausing for myself too. And just notice anything, any sensation, any energy that's moving right now in and around your body. Anything.
I kind of was brought back to that moment and started to feel choked up in my chest. Yeah.
What did you feel in your chest? You said choked up.
I just started to, as I was explaining it, I started to feel the emotions going in my head, like the heaviness, I guess, heaviness in the chest. I think a sadness of just retelling that story. It just brought me right back to like some of those feelings that I had.
How about you, Queen?
It's funny, when you said pay attention to what's going on in your body, the only thing that I could pay attention to was the songs the birds are singing at this moment. I wasn't able to connect with anything internally. It was all externally. It was the beautifulness of the songs. I don't know what they're saying, obviously, but it was that brought me peace. It was just a beautiful moment just to be able to hear them.
Yes. And if I may, I'm curious if you said you didn't feel anything internally, you went external. Right. I will share that I felt similarly. I felt the constriction in my chest. I felt the clenching. My jaw got really tight. So that's why I had to loosen my jaw and breathe. And I could also feel my stomach tightening. So I was trying to, once I realized, right, and I came back into it and I noticed that. And I noticed when it started to pick up. And so I just want to just reflect back, so much of this experience is what is happening to us on a regular basis. And we don't have the opportunity, if we are not conscious, or if someone doesn't offer us the opportunity, right, to offer and even extend, when I believe this is an act of care, to be able to pause and recognize the impact. And this could be, you know, obviously talking about the Peace and Justice Memorial and the Lynching Museum could seem like it's extreme. And then at the same time, it could be just like turning on the news. You know, both of you are from Tulsa. So you have...
Not really, I'm from Dallas.
No, oh, you're from Dallas. Okay. Lived in Tulsa.
Lived there for 3 years,
Okay. So when I think about how the history of the land lives in our bodies too,
yes,
and what has happened on the land, and to our people, whether it's our story, whether they're our ancestors or not, they are still our ancestors, right? Collectively, whether they're blood kin or not. And so I similarly went to that place with Ray because I've been there. So I can actually still see the placards that she's talking about with the rationale, the reason for why this person was lynched. And then I can go in my head, if I just stayed in my head, then I would go also then to the direct comparison, right? The young man that got shot just for knocking on the wrong door the other day. And or to the comparison of what happens when a Black woman or Black person talks back, speaks with authority,
asserts
themselves. And while in many cases, the actual threat of death might not be there, the historical threat, the institutional threat, right? The experience that we know in our bones, in our bodies is still there. So going to the body and recognizing, how quickly did I leave my body? How quickly could I have left my body to continue to tell or to be with this story? And that's happening to us every single day. And so I think it was a brilliant example, Ray. I mean, I went there with you because I've been there, but even before I went there, like I had a story when I went to that museum and to the memorial. I had a story. I was looking for somebody. I was looking for someone's name. I'd heard the story of a man named Claude Neal who was lynched in Florida in the 1920s. And this was on NPR, so it was years before. And I'd heard the story of a Black man who grew up in that same town and had found out about the lynching in a book called The Anatomy of a Lynching. And he learned that was actually like his grandmother grew up with this young man. And he actually asked to find out, like, how come I've never heard this story before? It's a terrible story of how he was lynched and then what happened. But the fact that the trauma still lived in the bodies of the women who raised him in church, the people who taught him how to pray, et cetera, it was something they never talked about. And so he wanted to honor Claude Neal. So he ran the same distance that Claude's body was dragged. And in doing this, he did it, it was commemorative, right? And I was like, as I think about it now, that was such an embodied, like by running, it was an embodied practice of remembering, of honoring, but it was also a representation, I think, of what could happen for us if we were able to hear those stories and then have care wrapped around us. People were following him to make sure he was safe, you know, while he was running. And I'll find the link and send you all this story because it's one of those things, and we call it a somatic elicitation. Even to hear it on NPR, just the audio, it takes you there, and you can want to leave your body in hearing the story. And I know for me, like that's very much how I operated in my work for years, in my life, was out of my body. That was a part of survival.
Yeah, I do want to bring Queen into the conversation,
Yes.
just because I know that she has a lot of thoughts around like how we relate to trauma, and then and if it's something that I've heard you speak about, like I forget what you're saying, like the need to move past or relate. I know that you had your families from Greenwood, and you may have this different perspective. I would love to bring that in the room. I've heard you speak to it, and I think that that's something I would like to explore, just because I know that people have different perspectives on how we remember and what we should and how much time we should spend on it.
Yeah, I know for me, when you were sharing your story about your experience at the museum, it did remind me of when I went into the Greenwood Rising Museum. I didn't even get to finish it, honestly, because I left. I was crying. However, I was more mad than anything on how they pick and chose what to share and what not to share, whose names were left out, because I know a lot of the history of Greenwood. So I know how they curated that museum. But for me, having a gallery on Greenwood, it was trauma all day. And I had to create this space where I had to still bring the light within that trauma. And so I think for me, yeah, I would get people into the gallery and I'm telling them about the history, but then I also had to make it a point to speak about the present and the people that were still doing things that, the artists that were conveying their trauma through art. And so, with me, I think trauma is different, and I feel like it goes hand in hand with me just resonating with these birds because, maybe I'm blocking it out, or maybe I'm trying to find the beauty as well. And y'all had this moment of chest tightening, but I could be honest with you, my chest has been tight this whole conversation because you all are speaking about things I don't even know about, and it's not that I don't want to know, but I'm learning a lot. Like my chest, I think it was around the time when she said she was in the room with her grandmother and her great grandmother, and they would write their dreams in a book. I didn't have those experiences with my grandmother. So I think I'm learning a lot just hearing y'all talk about going to these different museums. But I know for me, being in Tulsa for those 3.5, 4 years, it was such a traumatic experience. However, I knew I had work to do. So I always made sure that, within the trauma, I was a safe space. I always called the gallery the living room of Black Wall Street. So, though you just took this tour of Greenwood and you just seen the placards and you heard about, the different ways and tactics that they had us removed, once you came to the gallery, there's music. I had incense. I tried to be that space, that happy space. I try to be that decompression, so I think that's kind of like how I am just naturally, maybe, or maybe I could have more internal work that I need to do and I'm just not aware of it. But I always, I don't know. That's why I'm always losing my voice every weekend. Cause at the end of the day, I choose joy. I really tried to make sure that whatever I'm going through, I have time to just allow myself to be present and just, I don't like to cry. And if I am crying, I want it to be happy tears. So yeah, I think trauma for me looks differently. When y'all even spoke about the trauma that you experienced during hair day, my grandmother, she owned the largest wig store in Tulsa. So hair day was fun for us. We actually, Ray can tell you every time she see me, my hair is different because I do enjoy doing my hair. And my mother, she would switch up her hair all the time. So it was an art for us. So I think my trauma might be, I think I'm experiencing more trauma as an adult than I ever had as a child. And a lot of that came through my experience in Tulsa.
Oh, Queen. Thank you. You just spoke medicine. And I first I just want to affirm what you said around not only how trauma looks differently, right? Because trauma, I think, there are lots of different conversations about trauma, but how we experience trauma is different in every single body. And there's no right or wrong. I think going back to that binary, there's not, like when I heard you say, like, well, maybe I have more work to do. listen, I'm doing my work right now while we are sitting here right now in this conversation. And that's the gift. And it's not about doing the work to get it right. And so I just want to affirm you in not only how you heard the birds, right? How you found resource, because that is a healing practice. You seek and cultivate resource. You know, yes, art is our healing. Art is medicine. Joy is medicine. And sometimes we need people to curate spaces so that we can access the joy, because we might have learned not to trust the joy. And that part is hard. And so as someone who has had learned, I have to unlearn not trusting joy. I have to learn to trust the joy when it's in my body, when I feel it and know it and experience it and celebrate it. So I just want to completely affirm and highlight your healing gifts. And also to just ask you, like, what called you to curate those spaces in Tulsa? Because I'm hearing a calling from your people. Right? I hear an ancestral calling there.
That's what it was. Honestly, ever since I could remember, I wanted to move to Tulsa. It was something inside of me saying, you got to experience Tulsa. So after I got a divorce from my husband, I seen the perfect opportunity to move to Tulsa to start this life that I've always wanted to do. And I had no idea what I was doing. I ended up just moving, found a job, worked that job, selling cell phone under tents, but I was happy as a clam. Like, I just knew I was where I was supposed to be. So it has always been, I say it was my ancestors. I would go out to Tulsa during the summers to visit family. And so, I always had a great time. But coming from, living in Dallas so long, I was like, this seems like a total opposite experience. And I knew as soon as I got to Tulsa, it was definitely divine. Because the way things played out, even how I had to leave Tulsa, I'm still battling with that, but I know it was divine. So I definitely, it was all spirit. It wasn't a job. It wasn't a man. It was spirit that told me to move to Tulsa.
I'm so glad you're still able to carry that perspective, because oftentimes when we think about binary, we think about just because there was some hurt there in the experience in Tulsa, you felt called, and then there was hurt. And then oftentimes the way we've been programmed to think is like, well, then I wasn't even supposed to go to Tulsa, and this was a waste. And but you're like, no, like, this was divine, and I still know it was divine. But I think that realizing it could be all the things, because life is life, and people are still in the story, and people are going to cause what people do, whether it's, good or bad or a little bit of both. But I think that for me, like, I like hearing you say, like, it was divine, my ancestors called me. And I think that you made the impact, and you were impacted in the ways in which you are probably still learning. And there'll be lessons and things that still come from that. But it's super important for us to never, and I'm saying this for myself, because I've had great times and great years, but then there was a little seemingly negativity, and I'm like, well, was I supposed to do it? Well, so I think that that's like the part of that, like, unlearning of it has to be this or it has to be that.
I look at the fruit, that I went through that experience, the fruit that I bared after Tulsa. Like, this podcast would have never been a thing had I not moved to Tulsa. My work that I do with artists would have never been a thing had I not moved to Tulsa. My son's education and where he's at, I don't think it would be as extensive as it is had he not went to Sankofa. And, so there were so many things that came out of it that I know was the right decision. Now, that one man's choice to do what he did, which is why I'm not there anymore, was actually God. I know it is, because I still see people trying to work that out in my favor. And I still get contacted by people telling me, how they missed the gallery and how the Black Wall Street isn't the same. So I know that impact was not, like what I did was, it meant something. And so that's why I know it was definitely divine. I'm still just trying to figure out, what's my next move.
Mhm.
But the fruit that came from it, I know that it was supposed to happen.
Mhm.
And I left when I was supposed to. Because I mean, even when you think about, had he not told me, you need to get out of here, look at Greenwood, right? You see Fat Guys is gone, the speakeasy is gone, the museum is under fire. There's so many. Greenwood is now, all those skeletons are coming out of the closet, and I did not need to be there for that. I now need to be on the outside, being able to share the story to a larger masses. And that's what I'm doing. So now I can speak about Greenwood, and then I feel like it actually can bring some traction instead of screaming from Greenwood. Now I can go tell the story to people who can come back and, shine light on it. So I really do believe it was divine.
Ooh. There's something that's coming to me, and that is very much when I hear from when you were talking about the right time. I hear from your people, you were there at the exact right time, and you have much more work to do. They've been working through you, and the idea that you can remove yourself from an environment that might not cultivate the richest resource for you is medicine. And part of the, even like when I think about how we even started Black Mama Body, it was very much similarly, like I knew that if I were healed, if I were in a safe, whatever it might, right? And the safety is inside. It's not even about the external environment, right? That healing is going to ripple out. You talked about what's possible for your son, what's possible for anyone who comes in contact with the stories and the art and the spaces that you curate, the spaces that you hold. This podcast, this is rippling. This is so at that magnitude, your care is primary. And so, gosh, I'm gonna start crying, because when I think about the gift that is, definitely for Black women and Black femme bodies, to have that kind of care that says, I need to be in a space that's going to care for me in order for my medicine to be shared before I give to everybody else. Here, this has to be cultivated and cared for. And the stories that you will tell and the history, and that's going to be illuminated, even as you mentioned, right? Like to be able to tell the full complexity of the story and not just the pieces that are told because they're curated. Your voice as a storyteller is liberatory practice. That is liberatory work every single day, every damn day. So I just we have to lift that up.
I do, yeah. I think that I do want to get into our joy practice, but I also hear preservation from Queen. And I think that there's I hear a lot of people who are not that this is what I'm hearing from Queen, but what I did want to bring is just people, they do block out a lot of the traumatic events, not that the things that we went through, but what our ancestors went through, giving voice to that. People feel like it keeps us in that space. I would love to hear your thoughts on that, Erin, but I know that it's a level of preservation, but I think that and I don't fault anybody who's just trying to preserve their sanity. Because it is a level of like, if you really allow yourself to think about it, it does make you go crazy. Like, what did James Baldwin say? To be Black in this country and conscious, like,
it's in a constant state of rage.
Is a constant state of rage. But I think that for me, it's always important to acknowledge my ancestors and what they endured. And also it helps make sense of some of the things that we experience today. But I would love to hear your thoughts on that. I know when I went to Ghana and going through that, all I could think about is they deserve to be honored. They deserve to be remembered. Their stories deserve to be told. Their names deserve to be said. But yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on that, Erin.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to give you a mashup of joy and survival in this answer because it's all a mashup. And I want to keep coming back to giving ourselves the opportunity to be expansive. That there is no one right way of healing, and I have to say this for us. Because I think the idea that, so when we talk about preservation, and when I heard you say preservation, I was thinking about the preservation of our lineage stories and like what stories we keep and what stories do we block or what stories we hold. And then I was hearing, self-preservation.
Self-preservation, yeah.
Right, like to preserve, right, to care for self in a way that allows us to be. And so there are ways in which we can override, and this is something that I know happens for me often, right? It's I will override, like when my body is uncomfortable, things that when I'm in environments and my heart does race, or if I'm feeling some form of trauma response, right? And if I'm not conscious of it, which even as someone who is a practitioner, a somatic practitioner, or someone who has studied trauma, right? I'm still in the body with a nervous system that gets dysregulated all the time. And so that is how I naturally move through the world as a human. And so to be expansive and caring for myself means that there are going to be times when sometimes I'm going to numb out. Like there'll be times when sometimes I'm going to check out. And when that happens, whether it was because the heat, it was too hot, the experience was too much, or because it's just unconscious, if it's so important to have the grace and the care for self to recognize, I did dissociate, or I was dissociated for 41 of these almost 42 years.
Separating yourselves.
That's right. Like to be able to find a way to cope, those coping mechanisms got me here. When I think about the survival of our ancestors, the things that I think, one of the stories that I've recently been discovering about one line of my ancestors are those that stayed on the plantation. I have a line of enslaved African ancestors who stayed on the plantation 2 years after emancipation. One daughter, the mother of that family was actually also the daughter of her owner. And, but beyond that, they stayed in what seemed like allegiance. If you just read the story based off of, the information we have, it seems like allegiance to their owners, to the plantation, but there was also fear of the complete unknown. If you are born on the plantation and you don't know, your grandmother was brought here as an enslaved African, so you've never known anything but this life. You don't know what safety will be because while this plantation owner is someone who is using your body for labor, you don't know any other body, any other white body that would have any care for you at all when you leave this plantation. So the actual threat to leaving versus staying is impossible to fathom. So when I think about that, it very much resonates with me that there are many situations in my life where the possibility of the unknown could feel like I might die, or I can't breathe, or so I will dissociate. I might freeze, right, in the moment, whatever that response, that trauma response might be. I might actually, completely shut down. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? And I think that's the piece that, I talk about this a lot with Black Mama Body and in some of our upcoming programming around recognizing the gifts of survival, because there's like a lot of rhetoric. And I think we see like all these memes and stuff like survival, not I want to thrive and not survive.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I am completely committed to 100% thrival. I want us to thrive all day, every day, and experience that. And if we are carrying the shame from the unconscious survival patterns that we have, we won't get there. And if we can't offer ourselves the care or witness each other with care and say, I see you, sis. I see you. You got a little bit more free today. I see there's a little bit more room in your chest today. I heard you. Oh, I saw you hearing them birds. You heard the birds. You are in touch with the medicine that nature has to offer you.
Yeah.
The fact that you could hear the birds, you are in touch. And so being able to recognize that we are expansive, we have so much possibility for healing. Yes, we can access more of our imagination and more of our creativity when we are embodied and when we are in that practice. It's a practice.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that it's just make sure I come back full circle, because my brain will take me somewhere else. So just know I'll be on a tangent. But the idea that that we could not have those experiences, or that when we do, that there's something wrong with us, or that we did something wrong, is not allowing us the full possibility available to us for our healing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I do, like I said, I do want to get into remembering joy and joy being our birthright. I think joy is revolutionary, because a lot of things are telling us to stuff down our joy, or oppress our joy, causing our joy to be, can cause our joy to be suppressed. For me, joy is really important. I know as Queen has shared, it's super important to her. One of the things I had myself like speaking to people who think differently than me, because they think that because maybe I'm speaking to things that ancestors have gone through. I'm speaking through healing. I'm like speaking to power, that I live in that space. But I'm like, I know how to move to joy, and I know how important joy is and balance is as well, and how Black joy is extremely important. So I would really love to get into some like Black Mama Body experiences, and how do you bring joy in the space?
Yes. Let me see. Can I share my screen with you?
Let me see if I could.
If not, it's okay. I can talk.
Yeah, I'm gonna share it with. Tell me if you are able to now. It should allow you to.
Okay. Let's see. Let's do this one. See if this comes up. Okay. Now my mic sounds nice, but my tech game is real slow. And but in the Black Mama Body space, I kind of, and we have different spaces, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but the essence of all of the spaces is to curate and hold a multi-sensory, multi-medium experience of not only reclaiming our joy, but making the medicine. And we do this through somatic elicitation. And so I mentioned earlier, right, like even just the telling of the stories, something's working in your body.
And before you move on, could you explain somatic?
Let me break that down. So the somatic elicitation is when you have an experience that draws out or calls out an embodied response.
And somatic the somatic by itself.
So somatic is body. The soma means body. I think it's Greek. I'll have to check that. But the soma is body. So when we're having an embodied experience, as we mentioned earlier, I think when Ray was talking about the closing or the tightness of the chest, for me, the clenching of my jaw, when you notice your heart rate, any part of your body that is having an experience or reacting to or in response to something that is witnessed, and it's experienced at the sensory level, at every sensory level. That is a somatic experience. And so when we're presented with something that calls out that experience, or elicits the somatic experience, call it a somatic elicitation. So before I give any of that framing, though, I'm gonna make sure I can share. Okay. And then I'm gonna go back to my screen and come out of here. Did I do this right? Okay. So
share another screen, man.
Commercials.
It can be tricky. I already know. And it's like,
I had to make sure. I know. I'm like, it does it to me all the time. It's like, nope, not ready yet.
Yeah, not that screen. And then right when you need it,
then you're like, what is happening? So let me do this now. Okay. Okay. All right. Make sure, let me know if y'all can hear. Wade in the water, wade in the water, wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water, 'cause we're gonna throw the water, wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water, 'cause we're gonna throw the water.
I'm here for all of that. That was beautiful.
So, oh, this is what also happens to me.
Got to find the screen again.
I was like, let me make sure. Now, let me see. I have one more for you. No, before we go forward. So what I like to do is have, and we'll have Queen go first. Queen, imagine that you are in this space with Ray and we're in the same room.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to observe the two of you. And I'm going to invite you both to share what your experience was just now, what you noticed in your body, any of the vibrations, the energy, the vibe, the actual vibes, any images, any messages, felt spirit, any of the emotions, the mood, any urges you had, any sensations, anything you could taste in your mouth, everything that, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to use full sentences.
Okay.
You can also just connect with Queen. So I want to give you 2 minutes with Ray, just to share. So and Ray, you're going to hold space for Queen, which means that you're going to make space for Queen to share her experience without response, just to hold that space, everything that came up. And then we're going to pause. And then we'll switch.
Okay. Well, so watching that, I found myself dancing, bobbing my head. It took me back to when I was a young girl and I did a Debbie Allen dance weekend, and I remember the joy that brought me. It just gave me energy. I'm loving this conversation, but now I'm looking forward to going outside, just being outside and going to go get something to eat. I don't know what, but it just really, it energized me. I was watching all the flowy details and the fact that it matched up with the music. I don't know, it just brought some energy to me and just excitement. That's definitely what I can say came to me while watching that. Just good memories of my childhood and energy.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And now, Ray, you're going to share with Queen, and it's not going to be in response. So it's your experience sharing with Queen.
For me, it was like expansiveness is what I got from the dance and the cohesiveness of it, but just like expansiveness. And I'm not sure how to interpret that necessarily. It was an expansiveness, and then there was a moving from it. Okay, sentences are not necessary. I'm gonna say inner, I'm gonna say moving, I'm gonna say lineage, I'm gonna say expansive.
Now, with your shared experiences with each of your experiences. We're going to go back and forth. And each of you is going to share something. It could be a word. It could be onomatopoeia. It could be a growl. It could be a scream. It could be a facial expression. Doesn't have to be, again, just a word. It could be a movement. And we're going to go back and forth until I say stop. So each person is going to go. This is not a race, but you're going to go back and forth with, again, whatever you want to express coming from that experience.
I'll go first. Water.
Float.
Dance.
High.
Blue.
Ancestral.
Joy.
Channeling.
Deep.
Interconnectedness.
Wow.
Childlike.
Oh.
We're going to stop there.
Mm-hmm.
What are you noticing right now?
For me, I think I started responding. I felt like she would say something and it would, instead of me,
more responsive.
yeah, I felt like I was being more responsive.
Yes, I think that, and it was different than how I was experiencing it. Yeah.
Different from.
I started to realize that hers was more responsive as well. And I was like, should I be responding to her words? But I was just still thinking about the experience and the dance and things like that. And so
Yes. Well, I love watching that. So, and sometimes I'll get in there with y'all, but I wanted to like witness it. And so just to reflect back, what y'all just did was like, if we actually were in a session, I would have someone actually take your words and either graphic illustrate them, or somebody might pop them in the chat. We have a shared poem. You all created responsive art together based off of your embodied experience, witnessing, right? The medicine and the joy and the energy, all that you had as your individual experiences. And it was also a shared collective experience, and we made art. This is just like a small snippet taste, right? But it was beautiful to witness that as it did become responsive, but it was also like, oh, we're vibing, we're here. Like there is a way, and that's also, there is something inherently Black about, and when you said interconnectedness, that vibe of that back and forth, that responsiveness, that is even what created, Alvin Ailey created that dance, right? Alvin Ailey in the choreography of Revelations and Wade in the Water, right? You see that even in the movement of the bodies. That is us. That's inherently, we talk about your Debbie Allen experience, that's us, inherently Black. We will find a way to improvise together collectively and to make some art. Whether you know the prompt or not.
That was beautiful.
We're gonna make it happen. We're gonna make magic happen. We're gonna make something out of nothing.
Something out of nothing. We all we need is a little bit. Sometimes all we need is a little bit of ingredients. If I have some carrots, some onions, and some water and some salt and pepper, I can make something.
Mm-hmm.
If I have you, we can make something incredible. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and there is no right or wrong. There was no way you were going to get that wrong. And I think that's also what was deeply valuable, is like you trying this thing and I didn't tell you what we were going to do. And to be able to be responsive to the art, but also to feel it in your body, to be able to recognize what it is eliciting in your body. Right. I feel so much more ease. We talked about some heavy shit today. Like, can I cuss on your show? Talk about some heavy stuff. Okay. And when we do that and we don't move it and metabolize it, right? That's why dance is also when it, dance is my joy practice. Is one of mine, right? And laughter, like big, Maya and I have like these big belly laughs, and we usually do when we're dancing too.
That's your daughter, right?
That's my daughter, Maya.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We move it out. Shaking is moving that stuff out. Right? That's so important. And so yes. Oh, I need to learn about this waxer. I was like, wait a second, Queen, tell me, teach me.
It's a dance, and it's so funny. I like everything we've been saying. I feel like that's why I keep bringing it up, because it brings me pure joy. It's a song that I like.
You already know the medicine is within you.
Yeah,
this is you. You're both reclaiming. Like you just keep living your ancestors' dreams every time. Every time
they left that movement from us. That's a conversation I've been having with people. It's like it's movement medicine, and a lot of times when we think of medicine, we think of pharmaceuticals, but there's what our ancestors did that prevented any of the ailments, or like move through the ailments, or got us closer to just a healthy body.
Listen, that dance, the dances that are, and this similar, the responsiveness. When you think about the when West and Central African bodies were brought over in the Middle Passage, they were not all coming from the same places. They did not speak the same languages. They did not, right? Even as you talk about being in Ghana, right? And you think about, I was there at Elmina Castle, right? I was there at the point of no return in Ghana. Those ships were coming from different European countries, because it wasn't just, right, the British, or wasn't just the Dutch, it wasn't just the Portuguese, and they were coming from different places, and they were bringing us together and taking us to different places based off of our skills, based off of the crops we knew how to grow, right? The reason why certain folks are called Gullah, or coming from Angola, or in certain parts of the Sea Isles, they can grow rice, they can grow indigo, they can grow. We had specific skills, but how do we communicate? We communicated through the drum. We communicated through our dance. There's another video. I don't know if you'll have time. There's another one, and we may not, and if not, that's fine. But something else. Yes, go ahead. I just wanted to share with you that dance is a part of our legacy of liberation. Dance was used for rebellion. Dance was how we called out to each other to secretly pass codes that rebellion was coming. Dance was how we practiced our battle stances. And that's throughout the diaspora. You look at capoeira, you look at all different forms of movement. They were a part of our ability to connect, to communicate, to celebrate. The praise dance in the praise house, the ring shout in the circle, the electric slide in the circle. The elder Dr. Mama Coco Vasilasi, who talks very clearly about the ring shout being that circle, the cosmogram coming from Bantu culture that has always been in us. So it is most definitely our medicine.
Definitely. I do want to talk about your upcoming offerings, because what we did was powerful, and I just would love for other people to be able to experience that on a greater scale.
Yes, thank you. So I'm excited to say we got a lot going on this spring. Listen, this And it's Mercury in retrograde. Like I don't know how y'all follow astrology, but I definitely do. So, but there's this like incredible, generative energy that's coming with this spring. And so I'm doing a lot of things that bring me joy. And so one of the offerings is going to be a new group coaching program that we're launching called Your Soul's Desire. And so this is a group coaching program and caring community for Black and African descended women and femme bodies who are ready to step into their power, to fully claim not only the desires of our soul, right? And when I speak about our soul, I'm talking about our connection with spirit. I'm also talking about, again, the nervous system, what your body has been telling you, you are seeking, even when you tell yourself it's not possible. Your body knows what you are truly longing for, whether that's starting a new business, whether that's starting a new project, whether that is creating an entirely new idea, whether that is transforming or liberating your parenting. And as I mentioned before, we heal, and I believe we transform in community. When you have the opportunity to be witnessed in the communal space, it transmutes shame. It literally is like communal alchemy is the ability to transmute shame. We literally move that energy out of the space we witness it. And every should that kept us from doing or acting on the dreams that we have, we put those shoulds and we stop shoulding on ourselves and we start claiming the power within us. And so this is a group coaching program that there are 6 sessions of coaching, but then there are also multiple live calls with me as well. We have a lot of group work. We'll have special guest speakers. And then we have a really exciting program that is going to guide people over the course of 3 months to launch their soul's desire. And so really, really excited about that program. And like all Black Mama Body spaces, there will be a mix of practices that are deeply embodied through my somatic abolitionist practice, also through my coaching for liberation practice. And so challenging any of the limiting beliefs, again, that are not only just based off of our personal lived experience, but also the experiences that we have over the generations, and claiming our ancestral resilience while healing those wounds. And so really excited about Your Soul's Desire. We will have a limited space cohort. So we'll have limited space in the cohort, so it will be intimate. And we are also bringing back a program that we started, which is really more of an expansive community than it is a program, but it's the Deep Medicine Study Circle. And this is a program that I launched back in the fall that really was allowing us to explore what is deep medicine. And deep medicine was coined in a book called Inflamed, Deep Medicine and the Anatomy of Injustice by Rupa Mari and Raj Patel. And, they were really talking about sort of the intersection of our body systems and the inflammation in our bodies that is very much triggered by the inflammation in the systems, the social systems that we interact with, and then how that inflammation is also harming the earth. And they look at multiple body systems and then play, right, with the interweaving of the stories. And so what we do in our spaces, as you can already see, is we weave a lot of modalities together to make medicine. And so in that space, and this is a free space, we're opening it up for folks who want to join. We have a lot of folks who are healers, coaches, that we also have folks who are not healing practitioners, folks who originally showed up because they said, I have aching in my joints and I want to understand what is at the root. And I think it has more to do with how I am relating to these systems every day. I believe that the weathering of my body, right, based off of my interactions with a system that might tell me, whether it's my job, whether it is the doctor's office that keeps gaslighting me and telling me that this pain is not really what it is, that we have the ability to make our own medicine. And just like we were talking about with dance, there are ancestral and lineage resources that we pull together from the African diaspora, from indigenous culture, from pre-colonial practices of communal healing. And we do that together. We dance a lot in that space. And we laugh a lot and we play a lot. And so it's a beautiful space. And we will be meeting on Wednesdays. We're meeting this Wednesday and every other Wednesday through June.
And that's a second offering. That offering is called the what?
That's called the Deep Medicine Study Circle. So
and
they're
starts
both
this Wednesday.
That starts this coming Wednesday. And Your Soul's Desire, the group coaching program and caring community starts on May 17th.
Okay. And where can they
that's a 3-month
find
program.
Information about those offerings?
Yes, so you can find them on Instagram. You can follow the BlackMamaBody Experience. And so that's the BlackMamaBody Experience Instagram, or you can follow me at BlackMamaBody. And we'll have the information there, links in the bio on the BlackMamaBody Experience.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes.
That is beautiful. And we're gonna check that out and definitely drop those in the show notes. Make sure people can be able to experience that. I do want to say thank you for giving us your time today and having this rich discussion. You could have been doing you could have been resting, after doing the baby's hair on a Sunday, but you took time to talk to us. And I just hope, as every conversation, that it does find the people that it's supposed to find. Yeah, I don't know if y'all have anything to wrap it up before we close out.
No, I would love to look at the next video, but other than that, my voice is not the greatest. Probably doesn't sound good on a podcast right now, but everybody, you can find me at Queen_Avenue on Instagram and Queenwood.
Yes.
No, it's Queenwood_Avenue. I always forget my own Instagram.
Yes. And I'm a Ray on Instagram. You can follow us at BlackAroundTheWorld_ on Instagram. And just message us at any time about the show, any thoughts, anything that you want to build off this conversation. We would love to hear from you. Love to connect with you. We can do that video, but I am going to end it for time's sake, and potentially we could still record it and share it as a kind of.
I wanted to thank y'all. I have really appreciated being with you two today and being able to play and just flow with you. And I love what you're doing, and I'm grateful to be a part of it.
Thank you so much for coming on. So again, stay Black.